Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Formula Podcast. I am your friendly neighborhood host, Trevor Carlson, and I'm really excited to share with you my experiences, experiments, and conversations around travel and designing a fulfilling life in whatever form that really means for you. Today, I am really excited to share a conversation that I had with one of the co-founders of BlinkNow, Maggie Doyne. I'm going to let her talk a bit about what type of work she's done and the difference she's really made with children in Nepal. So her and I really dive into how she got started and how other people can learn to give back and maybe take the path less traveled in their own lives. So hopefully you get a few things taken away from our conversation with Maggie. The connection kind of dropped in and out a bit, but I think we cleaned it up really good, so it turned into an awesome conversation. Now, without me rambling on in this intro any further, let's get this episode started with BlinkNow's Maggie Doyne. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Formula. It's me, your host, Trevor Carlson, here with Maggie Doyne. Maggie is correct me if I'm wrong when I say this, but one of the co-founders of BlinkNow. Would you like to give us like your little background spiel on what BlinkNow is and maybe a little background on how it got started?
Sure. Trevor, thanks so much for having me. BlinkNow is an organization that supports children in a rural community in Nepal. We work to tackle poverty alleviation, orphan care. We empower women. We kind of look at the whole child in a region where children are really suffering and try to give them absolutely everything they need to be safe, educated, loved, and grow up to thrive and hopefully become change makers. We've been working in Surkhet, Nepal for, 13 years now. And we run a school, a women's center, a sustainable farm, a safe house for young women, and a children's home for orphan children.
Yeah, and I can hear some of them playing in the background now. So that's that's you guys. You guys definitely have your hands full. It sounds like. So one of the reasons I'm trying to remember how I even found out about what you guys were doing. I think it was somebody shared a video on Facebook or something, and it really caught my attention just because I think I was either at the beginning of my own travel journey, for lack of a better term, or I was about to start. And I kind of heard your story about how you were like 18, 19, backpacking, and you ended up in Nepal. And kind of I don't want to say came up with the idea, but really like you came up with you found the inspiration or something along those lines to get started on this, opening the school and everything else that it's turned into.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I didn't mean to put a lot of pressure on you on your travel.
No.
I wonder what's yeah, that's kind of how it started. I grew up in suburban New Jersey on a cul-de-sac, just a normal middle-class family. I went to public school, and like many of us kids in New Jersey, playing sports and doing all the things that young people do, I had a lot of pressure on me to go to college and get a scholarship, and was very convinced that was the fast track to success and kind of how our culture defines success. And long story short, at the end of my senior year, after I'd been accepted to college and things were looking like they were going to go in the right direction, I just woke up one morning and was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea who I am on the inside. I have no idea what I want to be or what I want to do. And I'm about to go spend way too much money on an education when I've never even really left, New Jersey. And I don't know, I think at that sort of crossroads and grappling with some really serious questions about myself and my coming of age, I just decided that maybe traveling would help me kind of learn about myself and experience another culture and another way of doing things, and also just like get me out of the box and the bubble that I was in. So I signed up for a gap year program. Gap years they call it a year off. A lot of us like to call it a year on. But you just go and you sign up for a program and you do a lot of cultural immersion. And the program that I did had us scuba diving and learning about sea coastal ecosystems and doing stream restoration in New Zealand and living on a Buddhist monastery, learning about meditation. It was really just about kind of self-discovery through travel. And then there were some sort of service elements to it as well, but again, not really the focus. And for the second part of the year, I loved kids. I had babysat a lot growing up. I was this camp counselor and all of the things. And I just really wanted to be somewhere where I could work with kids and be of service. And just working with a mentor and working with the program, just by, 100 chances happening and 100 right and left turns, I ended up in northeastern India. And I was working with Nepalese refugees at a time when I couldn't even pinpointed Nepal on a map. Little did I know that there was a civil war happening. And so that's kind of how I was introduced to Nepal as a country and a region. I was working with refugees across the border and through an amazing program there, and kind of started to learn and ultimately wanted to go backpacking to Nepal myself.
So one of the questions that I have is like reading your story, you said that there was a little I think it was a little girl or a little boy that you met that really kind of pushed you in the direction of putting your attention on Nepal. And in regards to like the rest of your story, I was thinking about when I was like that age, 18 years old. I'm like, man, where were you at to like tell me to go like buy a backpack and like sign up for one of these programs? Because I think it's something that's definitely relatable to most people that, I think so, at least, that are, 18 years old. You don't necessarily know what you want to do, or you don't really I don't feel like a lot of people know themselves, what they like, what they don't like. And then, so I think taking that approach, the gap year, and kind of figuring things out probably isn't a bad idea for a lot of people to do before they commit to something. Cause it's really hard. Even, I'm 31 now, and, still I have those questions like, what is it that I want to do when I grow up or get older, So I think that it's, what do you think it was that really, instead of taking that typical path, instead of, just being like, well, I'll figure it out when I'm in school, what do you think it was that pushed you to do the travel, the gap year, and to give back with the students and sorry, go ahead and take it from there.
Yeah. I think so. I'm definitely not the kid that was like, I'm going to go make a difference and like put a pin on a map and like, I'm going to go there and help kids. Like, this desire of me to travel was 100% like selfish in the sense. And it was like, honestly, like, we have to talk about privilege too here. Like, I had an option of either going to college, and my parents encouraged, and supported the idea to travel and to, so yeah, there was an element of privilege there, because not everyone can just jet off for a year with a backpack. And yes, I worked for it and I babysat and I spent most of my own money and everything and saved up for that. But still, like, so there's that. But I started to question the system, this system that had been ingrained and shoved down my throat from the time I was 7, 8, 9 years old, that to be successful, you have to go to college. And then when you really dig into that, in U.S. culture, look at college prices. They're hundreds of thousands of dollars. And what we're doing is sending, young people to go on this journey of self-discovery that costs so much money.
Yeah.
and that our parents and our loans are expected to pay for. And I just started to look at it and be like, what? Like, that's going to help me? Like, going and spending, 50, 60,000 a year of college debt to like figure out who I am. And so it was that like fear, I think, of like, that doesn't make sense. And
Yeah.
I remember when I started to talk about the idea of just traveling and taking off for a year, my guidance counselor called me down into the office and told me
Oh
I was
no.
making a huge mistake. She was like, this is a mistake. You should go to college. And right when she said that, I was like, okay, you know what? Like, it just even made me question it even more. Like, what's the big deal taking a year off and not going straight to college? Like, who cares, you know? So I think it was that. And then, and just like look at our culture as a whole and how we hold education is really important, but not in that. It doesn't always have to look like that, I don't
Right.
think. And when you look at why there's, you know, kids with drugs and alcohol and, you know, what happens on college campuses, I think it is a reflection that maybe we're not doing it exactly the right way that it should be done.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother conversation.
Right. No, I agree with you on a lot of that stuff too. Cause it's, I mean, even from, you know, you definitely unpacked a lot there, with going to college and like even the debt. I'm sure there's a lot of people that get into their like mid 20s, late 20s, 30s, but you're kind of stuck for a while once you pile up the debt, and they might want to give back. They might want to travel. They might want to do more self-discovery later on. But, you know, when you've made that commitment to go down that path of self-discovery that does put you in debt for a long time, makes it kind of tough to do this stuff. So it's I don't know. It's definitely a system that, you know, maybe it works for some people, but, you know, for others, it can kind of, it can kind of get them stuck a bit, but so.
Oh yeah. I think that golden handcuffs, that's definitely where it begins. Like, okay, well, I want to travel now, but I've got all this college debt to pay off and pressure to get a job and it definitely creates this cycle and this hamster wheel of like, go, get on the right track. If I don't do this, then that's going to happen. Then that's going to happen. Then I'm going to be a failure. And we're afraid, I think, in culture of doing anything different. And I think that first step for me as an 18-year-old was saying like, no, like, I'm going to take a step aside for a second. And that was the gap year. And at the time, I think it was really brave, and I'm proud of myself, and I'm lucky that I had that opportunity, and that my parents even like supported and encouraged it, because it was the best thing ever. And I just to cut to the end of the story, I have not gone back to college, and I have a life and a career that is so fulfilling, and a job that I completely love. And I've learned more about this field of work, like so there's lots of ways to get to that destination, which is just finding something that you're passionate about it, and that hopefully makes the world a little bit better.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And one of the, you know, it's being able to really, you know, make that choice when pretty much everybody around you is telling you that it's not a good idea. I mean, it's not responsible based on like society's standard for success, you know? And it even over I haven't been abroad as much as you have since you've been over in Nepal for quite some time, haven't you? Yeah,
12, 13 years.
Yeah, just a short couple of years. So yeah, I mean, it's when you see how kind of the rest of the world lives and how they define success in other areas, at least for me, seeing that has really changed my perspective. I'm back home in the US for a short period of time now before jumping off into some other things overseas. But I don't know, seeing how we define success here, and how we kind of, I don't know, it's almost like we keep encouraging people to make the same, I'm probably just going to say bad decisions that we make, just because that's how we were kind of taught as well. I don't know if I should call them bad decisions, but it's like making choices before you really understand why you're making them, without the intention behind them. And I think that seeing, you know, that there's other ways of doing it, other options is like a huge motivator for people to go down a different path. And I'd really like to continue to talk about like intention and whatnot, but I'm really curious about, I brought it up a few minutes earlier where, you were in Nepal and you're backpacking and you met the child that really kind of led you to was one of the pivotal dominoes to getting you to where you are now. Do you want to maybe share what it was about that, what happened in that situation that really, really pushed you to go that direction? Because I feel like with who you are as a person and your ambition and all that, you probably could have, picked a place that needed help and started something, with like a different cause or with children somewhere else. So what do you think it was about Nepal and everything that happened there that made you choose to go that direction?
Yeah. So, to go back to that moment in time, and there was a series of moments. You don't just up and move to Nepal and adopt a bunch of kids, but
yeah.
So I'm in India and I'm following all the events, and I just become so, meeting kids and refugees sleeping under pieces of plastic by the side of the road and hearing their stories, and I eventually befriended my friend Sunita, and she had left her village during the sort of climax of the civil war and hadn't been back. And in Nepal at that time, there was an armistice and the border was opened up. And so the two of us decided to go on a trip to go find her village. And I packed up that backpack and we get on a long bus. And it was on that trip that I was, you take in a lot of the stories and I was inspired. I mean, I felt a really deep connection. Everyone who comes to Nepal just feels like, oh my gosh, these people are amazing. The landscape's amazing, resilience, strength, natural beauty, simplicity. That's kind of what I think this country really stands for. But for me, that moment was on a dry riverbed. I was just crossing over through this little trading post town, and I looked across the riverbed and saw a few dozen children breaking rocks. And these kids were 3 years old, 5 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old. And I'd seen a lot in that, year and a half or so of traveling, but this is what I just locked eyes with this little girl, and it was like